Hello and welcome to StratoCast, the UK BattleTech Southeast podcast, and today we're going to look at dropships and using them in tabletop. Now today I'm using MegaMek to simulate that because MegaMek is able to use all of the tabletop rules, but really this is a video about how you can use those in your tabletop game to land and deploy units and the rules that are in Total Warfare. So I'm going to just give a brief overview on 3 methods for getting your troops into battle. First one we're going to do is going to be the basic landing from orbit. So on the maps you have different levels. You can have the space map, then you have the high altitude map, which is the 6 layers of atmosphere above the planet's surface, and then you have the low altitude map. Now in MegaMek we only have the low altitude map, and in games on tabletop usually only would use the low altitude map. So the low altitude map starts at altitude 10, shouldn't be confused with height 10 because that's a different thing. Height 10 is like 60 meters, altitude 10 is like, I can't remember the exact number, it's like 5,000 meters. It's basically the edge of the high altitude map. So we're going to start on altitude 10 and we're then going to drop the dropship to the surface and unload the troops. So I'm going to launch here. We've got a standard Union. I've just packed it with 12 Griffin 1Ns, all with jump jets, but we're not going to use those for the time being. So we're just going to show the mechanics of how you would land. I'm starting at altitude 10 because that's the edge of the high altitude, so the low altitude map is altitude 10, and I've just picked a basic map. So here we go. We're going to position the dropship. So the dropship, just when you're in the low altitude map, just represents on one hex here. And we're going to just drop. So in the first turn here we are at altitude 10, and Spheroid dropships can drop 2 altitude levels per turn. So we can go down 2 levels from 10 to 9 to 8 safely, and then we need to click on the hover button and hover, because Aerodyne dropships can fly with wings, but Spheroid dropships need to basically just hover on the thrust. So we basically hit hover, it costs 2 thrust points, and they basically are coming down on their fusion cone and are able to hover. So it's going down 2 levels but hovering vertically. So click move, it's gone down 2 levels, we're not firing anybody. As for firing, Aerodyne dropships, not Aerodyne, Spheroid dropships as they drop can't fire on anything other than other airborne targets. So they can't fire on things on the ground until they've hit the ground. So we're going to go, that's round 1, we're going to go into round 2, we're going to go down 2 levels. You can also, every turn on the low altitude, not low altitude map, on the ground map, you can actually move 8 hexes. So let's just show you that. I'm going to do go down, do hover, and I can also move up to 8 hexes. And this is basically on the ground map. So if you've got the ground map and you've got your point where your dropship's heading down, it can go 8 hexes. So for instance, I can go over here. Can be in any direction. I could go any 8 hexes. So go down, hover, and just go over here. There we go. Skip firing. Okay, so this is turn 3. Go down. I'm just going to return to where I was before. And hit hover again. That's 3 turns. We're now down to altitude 4. Again, don't get confused in altitude and levels. different things. Skip firing. Going into turn 5. Okay, so we've gone turn 1, we've gone from 10 to 8. Turn 2, we've gone from 8 to 6. Turn 3, we've gone from 6 to 4.
Okay, I found this on the web for Go On To Her Mum, gone from 10 to 6. Check it out.
So on turn 1, we went from 10 to 8. From turn 2, we went from 8 to 6. From turn 3, we went from 6 to 4. Turn 4, we went from 4 to 2. This is where the rules get a bit weird, because to land you need to be in altitude 1. So this turn I just need to go down 1 level. So in turn 5, we need to go down 1 level. Go down 1 level. And click hover. And now we can initiate the vertical takeoff and landing. So the landing rules are that if you are at altitude 1, you can then initiate the vertical takeoff and landing, which of course Spheroid DropShips can do. So I can go to B land. When I click land, I have to make the piloting skill roll. I've set this pilot to be pilot 5. It's going to have some modifiers because of the terrain. If you were landing, for instance, if there were forests, it would be a lot harder. If you're landing on concrete, then it's actually easier because it's a proper landing pad. If you're landing just on dirt, you get +2. Okay, so if you get +2, it's clear hexes. If you're landing on a proper landing pad, you get a -1. Now this doesn't mean your ship's going to be destroyed or anything, but by the margin of failure, by how much you fail, determines if your ship takes any damage to the landing struts. Dropships, you can drop them onto just flat land. It's okay, but it's not brilliant. But they will be able to do that, and probably, unless you really mess up, probably be able to take off again. So we're going to click yes. And we've dropped with a margin of failure of 1. So you can see margin of failure of 1 takes 10 damage to the aft, 94 damage remaining. And then as we land, it dishes out a lot of damage to the surrounding hexes. And this is why landing isn't a great idea where you've got your own units. Definitely not good. So there we go. We've landed, and now we enter into a crater though, because when a dropship lands onto a plane, it actually creates a 1 level depression crater. If it's on concrete, it's fine, but if it's on normal planes, it creates this crater. This actually does make it a little bit harder to take off afterwards as well. So that's a simple landing, and then so that's basically 1 turn to go from 10 to 8, 2 turns to go from 8 to 6, 3 turns from 6 to 4, 4 turns from 4 to 2, 5 turns from 2 to 1, and the 6th turn you go from 1 to landing. So 6 turns to get down to the ground, and then in the next movement phase of turn 7, we can unload, and you can unload 4 mechs per round. Okay, so you can unload 4 mechs per round, and because there are 4 doors, so I can unload 1, So I think this is a bit of a, I'm not sure if it's a bug in this, but you should be able to unload 4 per round. I think it's because I could select multiple in the option. Right, so I'm gonna go and skip firing. So if I do this in the next turn, I think it'll allow me to unload 4. So if I do unload now, no, for some reason it only lets me unload 1 per turn on MegaMek. Don't know why. That's not canon. In you can normally offload 4 per turn. So one of the flaws in MegaMek that's not letting me do that. So that's the supposedly the best way to get your mechs down without any problems. You can drop. It takes you 6 turns to get to the ground, and then your 7th turn you can deploy. That's the safe way. If you go faster than that, you run the risk of problems. Okay, so we're in option 2 here. Now, this is really not recommended if you don't want to do a lot of damage to your ship, but it's a really fun way to get down to the ground really quickly. Now, you can fall more than 2 altitude levels a turn. You can go as many as you want, but you have to make a piloting skill roll at +3 or lose control. And if you lose control, then lots of interesting things start happening. So let's see how this works. Okay, we're going to, instead of going down the safe 2, we're going to go down 9. So this is a way to get to the ground in 2 turns. We're going to go down 9, and then we're going to hover. Now, it's not going to like this. It's going to say, right, we need to make a skill roll of 18, 6 base piloting, 2 atmospheric operations, 1 because it's Spheroid DropShip, +9, lost more than 2 altitudes. So seriously not going to pass this. So we click yes. There we go. So skip firing. We've now gone down, and then at the end of the turn we crash and we take 2d6 times by 10 damage times by 2, because any ship that isn't moving at a velocity has a standard velocity of 2 plus any total warfare rules. So basically we've taken 140 damage in 10 damage increments, but we've survived. Now the most damage you could take from this, if it went really sideways, is 240. Not brilliant, but we have gone from altitude 10 to altitude landed 0 in 1 turn. Yeah, might need a change of underwear after that. Serious, but it works. We're now on the ground in a crater, and we can start unloading our troops onto the ground. Right, so that's our option 2. Option 3, we're going to look at dropping down using jump jets. So for the third drop method, we're going to do an airborne deployment of troops straight from the dropship. Now you can airborne deploy if you've got jump jets and then land safely, but you can also get from TAC Ops advanced units and equipment strap-on jump packs, which give you temporary jump jets with a certain amount of fuel, which you can use for landing safely. So any mechs technically can drop out from the dropship. So we're going to go down safely. I'm going to go down 2 levels, I'm going to hover, and then we're going to click on drop troops. So we click on the troops we want to drop, click on the other troops we want to drop. You can drop one per door. So bay 1 has 2 doors, bay 2 has 2 doors, and then we can click, and we've dropped 2 units. So in turn 2, these units now appear facing around the dropship at basically 2 hexes away, because they start at the edge of the dropship. The dropship on the ground map is technically going to be 6 hexes, or 7 hexes, so 1 hex radius. And then we're going to go down 2, so skip firing. So we go into turn 2, and these mechs are starting at altitude 8, and we're going to go down 2, and again, remember, when you're dropping, you can't shoot at anything other than other airborne targets. And then we're going to drop more troops. We're going to drop the rest of the troops in bay 1. We're going to drop the rest of the troop, or 2 more troops from bay 2. And then hover. So we're now down to 4, and then these troops you can actually fire with them. So you can't move, but you can actually fire at targets that are airborne. There's quite a large number of modifiers to do that, but that's all covered in StratoCast aerospace. So skip movement on these guys and skip firing. See why all of these have the ability to fire, but they can torso twist. So you still torso twist as you're falling. So we're going to go down to, for some reason it didn't launch the troops. I'm not sure why then. So let's go down again. Now these guys here have fallen 3 levels. So when you are falling in a standard atmosphere, the units will drop 3 levels per turn. So at the beginning of turn 2, they've dropped 3 levels. So I'm going to go down, drop troops, click on these 2, OK, click on those 2, click OK, go down, hover. I think you have to do this in the right order on MegaMek for it to work. There we go. So I've done all the drop troops I can. Oh, I've clicked down, going down too many times. So let me just clear that. So go down, hover. And drop troops. 2. And 2. And now we've dropped more. Oh, they did drop the previous turn. They're actually at different altitudes, so they're actually above each other. Now the way you can stop this from happening in MegaMek, you can actually rotate by 1 hex the union. So as you drop, you rotate 1 hex, and then they won't land on top of each other. So what's going to happen though here is, as each one's lands, it's going to then land and then move out of the way, ready for the next one. So we're going to skip movement on all of these. And we're just going to skip firing. And we have all of our units in the air. So again, they're dropping 3 levels every turn. You can see what level they're at. And then we're going to land on a successful piloting skill. On a successful piloting skill with no modifiers. So let's continue to go down. Hover. And skip movement. So what's happened here is the ones here have actually landed, so they can actually move out the way. When you land with a BattleTech, you can't attack in the turn you land, but you do get a +3 to be hit in the turn that you land. These have to clear out the way before the next ones land. Now at this point, I'm going to go down one more level. And hover. So this is going into turn 5. And now the rest of our Griffins land on target number 5 to land safely. Okay, on their piloting skill. These have got random piloting skills, but it would just be a 5. So it will land on target. If you don't make the piloting skill roll, so you can actually go back to round 4 and you can see that they have landed on target. It's amazing, they all made their skill roll. If you don't make the skill roll, you scatter 1d6 hexes per margin of failure, and you fall 1 level per margin of failure. So if you fail by 1, you scatter 1d6 hexes and you take a 1 level fall. If you fail by 2, you scatter 2d6 hexes and take a 1 level fall, 2 level fall, and possibly a maximum of 3 if you roll double 1. You take a 3 level fall and you scatter 3d6 hexes, which would be quite serious. And there we go. So now we are going from phase, firing phase in that turn. Okay, so we're now into the movement phase of turn 6. So turn 5 is when we landed, and you can't move when you landed. So now we can move. We want to move out the way of the dropship, clear the dropship area, be at least 6 hexes away. So let's go this way. Again, one problem with doing this, if you want to land the dropship, you want to clear the area as quickly as possible. I'll keep one mech too close just to show what would happen. I'm just scattering these guys out of the way. Obviously this works best on a much bigger map. And the plasma exhaust then will affect anything. And we'll keep this guy at range 2 just to show you how much damage it takes. And we'll go this guy at range 1 and see what a bad idea this is. And this dropship, when it lands, so now we can go to more vertical land. And any ships basically directly under it are going to be automatically destroyed. And then any 1 hex away are going to take, I think it's 60, 50, 40, 30, 20 damage. It's quite a lot. So we're going to land. There we go. We land and 1 basically got crushed by the dropship. So destroyed by proximity to the dropship, and then the second Griffin was hit for 36 damage. So I think it's 6 per, so 36, 30, 24, so it goes down by 6 every hex, out to basically 6 hexes from the dropship. So dropship pads are usually quite far away from anything, at least 6 times 30 meters, so 180 meters away from anything else, or you could potentially have kind of big baffles up, concrete baffles, which would stop the plasma from spreading. So don't stand under a dropship as it's falling. It's a really bad idea. If you're thinking of using a dropship though to land on people, can be quite a big mistake. I mean, obviously dropships are really expensive and quite, not really rare, but quite rare. But you know, it's several million C-bills, and every time you even take one damage in any aerodyne, any aerospace unit, you have to make a control roll, and if you fail the control roll, you could automatically crash. And you know, I hear some people saying, oh, you can land dropships on top of people and kill them, and I'm thinking, well, if you want to play BattleTech like that, that's fine, but it's not going to kind of be in fluff, if you see what I mean. It's not a fluffy way to play. People wouldn't be doing this sort of thing with their dropships. Okay, for our last example, we're going to do something completely crazy. We are going to try dropping into the middle of a city just to see how much chaos we could do. And I'm going to drop onto my Trinity City map here, which is based on some Hextech scenery. I'm going to try and pick a place that's suitable for a dropship. Again, it might be quite hard to actually pick somewhere because there might be trees, for instance. But trees aren't going to stop us. We're going to drop somewhere where there are trees. So I'm going to drop right here. Let's drop right into the action. I'm going to drop right into here. Okay, there are trees in the way here, and there are some buildings about. Let's see what chaos this makes as we drop down. So, I'm going to deploy there at altitude 10, and we're going to do a rapid descent landing. So we're going to go down by all the way to 1. Move, and can't make the piloting skill roll. We're basically going to do an automatic crash. Skip the firing phase, and in the end turn we lose control and we drop 1d6 levels and we crash. So Union now. We've crashed here. We've descended. Make one control roll. We've failed. We drop. We take 180 damage. We've slightly damaged our landing gear with a crit. We've taken 180 damage in 10 increments, and we have literally destroyed the dropship. So we've actually done so much damage to it, we've actually destroyed it. It couldn't take 180. It's taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 110 damage to the aft section. That's crushed all of the griffins inside, causing them to be damaged, and it's basically not done well. So that's how not to land a dropship in the middle of a city using a 10 altitude drop. Not a recommended idea. So hopefully you've given some ideas on tabletop how you could basically deploy dropships. You can just land them safely going down 2 levels a turn. You can drop really rapidly, but I wouldn't recommend it. You can drop troops as you're dropping, or even just while you're hovering, you can just hover. Sometimes the best way to drop troops is to drop them at level 3, because then they only take 1 turn to fall. But the advantage of staying at altitude 10 is units at altitude 9 and 10 can't be targeted by ground units. So if you hover your dropship at altitude 9 or 10, it can't be targeted, but as your mechs fall, they actually can take fire. And if your mechs take fire and fail at piloting skill check, they go out of control and can effectively land on their heads when they land. Not a pretty sight. So dropping from combat drops is very dangerous, as Clan Novacat found out on Tukid in 3052 when Comstar hit their dropship while they were in mid-combat drop. It's a great thing to add to the game, adds a little bit of complexity, all the rules are really covered in Total Warfare, and you also need Stratops for the airborne drop rules, or there's a simplified airborne drop rule in the BattleTech manual as well. Till next time, see you then.